Hi, welcome to Books and Bocadillos. My name is Mariandrea, and this is a week in review. I'm looking down because I want to make sure I'm actually recording, and I think I am. So, I am going to focus this week in review just on this week. I will talk about the books I've read in the time that I've been away. Um, but in terms of like highlights and lows, I'll just focus on what is happening now in this last week. Today is late night on Saturday, July 20th, and I'll be talking about the week of July 15th through the 20th. So, the highlight of the week has been rest. I was on call last weekend, and when I'm on call, I'm just constantly checking messages, my phone, and keep myself awake. I don't allow myself to take naps because I don't want to fall asleep and miss anything that's happening, any calls. So I keep myself pretty active and like at home. But I think last week, the time that I was home, I was just like being a busybody, just waiting for a call to come in. And so this week, my focus has been rest, and this weekend has been schedule clear, all about just rest and clearing my mind. So that's been the highlight. A low of the week was yesterday, Friday. I went outside to my patio to lay in the hammock and do some reading, and I got eaten by mosquitoes. I guess it's just part of the elements. It's summer, and I attract mosquitoes, and I don't know. It's just part of like life outdoors these days. So that was a bit of a low. I really got eaten up. Community posts. So my notes are on my lap, so that's why I'm looking down. Um, I think the last post that I posted was last week, July 11th, I think was the date. I posted food pics because wanted to let you know why I wasn't posting. I had to switch. I had to buy a video editing software. I was using a free software that came with my laptop, um, but as much as I was clearing, like deleting content from the hard drive and trying to, have memory and make things okay in terms of being able to record, um, it just wasn't working. I was really struggling with not knowing if a video was actually going to fully upload to my laptop so then I could edit. And so I'd spent all this time working on planning a video, recording a video, and then I wouldn't even get a chance to see it in editing. So it was really unreliable. I think maybe you just get free software for a short period of time and then there's all these glitches that force you to buy something. So I ended up purchasing a video editing software. So it's been taking time to learn how to edit videos in this new software. And so I put a post about the food I was eating um, as a way to just let you know that I hadn't forgotten about BookTube and was definitely still trying to get back to a schedule of posting videos. Um, so I think one thing about summer is that I love the food. I love summer foods, love the salads, and the foods that I associate with summer are like picnic foods, backyard grilling kind of foods like hamburgers and hot dogs and salads. And I crave a lot of salads in the summer, so um, that was what you got in my post. Um, tags. I recorded the mid-year freakout tag so many times. I am so serious. I don't even know how many times I tried to record and finally got that uploaded to YouTube yesterday. So I did that, and I enjoyed. At the end, I posted a superlatives, my own superlatives, um, for the first half of 2024. And all in all, I had fun um, talking to you about my reading year so far. So, what I have read in the month of July, I have. I'll start with this one. I read Real Self-Care, a transformative program for redefining wellness, crystals, cleanses, and bubble baths not included by Pooja Lakshmin, MD. Pooja Lakshmin is a psychiatrist, and um, she talks about what self-care looks like, and talks about, so it's like part memoir, part self-help, but not really self-help like follow these steps, but more like a reframing of what self-care means. And so, yeah, it's not like a self-help program that you're instantly going to have a plan, but it's more like a shift, a paradigm shift, or a mindset shift to where you're able to understand what self-care means and how to self-actualize um, as you shift your focus. So it's more than crystals or cleanses or um, like practical self-care strategies that are often talked about in mental health. I work in mental health. I work as a social worker, and we often talk about self-care. And I really liked Pooja Lakshmin's memoir and the lens through which she discusses self-care, because I think it is very relatable. So I actually listened to this book on a road trip to Austin at the beginning of the month, and I finished it while I was up there. And I seriously wanted to go to Book People in Austin and purchase a copy and give to all of my friends that I was spending time with that weekend. But none of my friends are readers, so I kept mentioning this book, but nobody seemed interested in actually reading it. So I ended up not doing that, not spending all the money. But I felt so positive about this book, and so and willing to endorse this book, that I wanted to buy it for all of my friends that weekend that I was up there. If they had been readers, I probably would have made that expense, but because none of them seemed interested in reading any kind of book at all, or going to the bookstore, I didn't go there. But this is a book that I will recommend. I'm probably going to continue to talk to my friends about what I read in this book, because I do, in the conversations that we kept having that weekend, I kept bringing this up because they would say something and I'm like, oh yeah, this book talks about how the struggle is real. And I do want to say that this is probably a book that is more relatable for women. So there is a gender bias in this book, I think, slightly. I mean, I think all people might benefit overall, but it's definitely seems a bit gender biased. I enjoyed it. I recommend it, and I'm glad I read it. The next book that I read was this one, Other Birds by Sarah Addison Allen. This is a book that I purchased for one of my in real life book clubs with my friend's book club at our local indie. And book club was last week. I showed up to book club not having finished it, and then I finished it over the weekend. So last weekend is when I finished reading this book. And I gave this book 2 stars. I wanted to give it more. As I was reading it, I thought it was going to be 3 stars. And then as I finished it, I just felt like I kept comparing it, and maybe this is a problem, but I kept comparing it to other books that I'd read and ratings that I'd given other books. And this really didn't feel like a book I'd want to reread. This really didn't feel like a book that I would recommend widely. I think that some readers would love it. Everybody in my book club rated it 4 or 5 stars. Everybody rated it 4 or 5 stars. There were no 3 stars. It was a very well loved book. There were just things in here for me that weren't as immersive. Like, I felt like the character development was not what I, or the, not the character development. Well, yeah, the character development, but also I think one thing that kind of I didn't like was that there was not a full um, exploration of like a sense of place. It was more like telling than showing the sense of place or the environment. Um, an example is like at times it was like the writer would say so and so, like, I'm just kind of making this up, like Zoe was playing a song, was listening to a song on the radio, but it didn't really tell you what song Zoe was listening to on the radio. There's like music playing in the car ride, didn't tell you what was being played in the car ride. I think that those are tiny details that kind of give you an insight into what is happening in the environment, what the character likes or doesn't like. There was one scene where one of the characters was holding a box, and it talked about like, oh yeah, they're holding the box in their hand, and then they're putting the box on the floor, and then they're putting the box on the hip, and it was kind of like I don't know that I needed to know the gymnastics of holding a box. Not trying to be like critical, but I just like there was sometimes those kinds of things that I felt like why why is this detail like needed? Um I don't know. I mean I'm having a hard time um being critical because I don't want to be. And I really, really wanted to give this book 4 or 5 stars, and I just felt like I wish that I didn't have the experience that I did. I wish I had a better experience with it because I really wanted to love it. I still really want to read Garden Spells by the same author, Sarah Addison Allen. I've heard great things about Garden Spells. I was really wanting to love this book so much. Um, I don't know if you even want to know what the book is about. I'm trying to think. Should I tell you about what the book is about? Um, I'll read the back. Down a narrow alley in the small coastal town of Mallow Island, South Carolina, lies a stunning cobblestone building comprised of 5 apartments. It's called the Della's Wisp, and it is named after the tiny turquoise birds who, alongside its human tenants, inhabit an air of magical secrecy. Newcomer Zoe Hennessy is intrigued by her quirky, enigmatic neighbors, a girl on the run, a grieving chef whose comfort food does not comfort him, 2 estranged middle-aged sisters, and 3 ghosts, each with their own story, each with their own longings, each whose ending isn't yet written. I'm going to stop there. So it's a story of how this island of misfits, these people who all live on this island and this apartment complex, come to know one another and come to become friends, and it's about found family. And that's what the book is about. It is very much, it reads like a Hallmark movie. And there are ghosts. There are stories of ghosts, and these ghosts are portrayed through birds. And the ghosts are helping to fill in the gaps so that you understand the history of like what happened prior to this newcomer's arrival, and it's giving you a background on the characters, the people in this apartment complex. So, I mean, it sounds like a great premise. I really, really wanted to love it. I don't know how many times I'm going to say that, but anyway, Other Birds. You might like it. My friends in book club loved this book, and I wanted to love it too, but maybe if I had had a different experience, maybe if I hadn't compared it to other books I'd read, maybe I would have liked it. Maybe at a different time in my life, I would have liked this more. And then the next book. So the next book I'm going to talk about is probably like my favorite book I've read so far this year. And this book, there are two books that I'm going to talk about in this video, and this book is one of them. So there are books that I had a hold at the library for the audiobook, and they came in. And of course, I'd been waiting weeks for these two books. They are both books that have a lot of hype, have a lot of like a big audience, like a lot of people in line to read these books. So when they came in, I just dropped everything, all the reading events, all like the reading projects to focus on these two books. So this book that I've read most recently is, I think, as of right now, my favorite book of 2024. And this is The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna. I loved this book so much. I listened to it on audio. I loved it so much. I wanted to annotate it, so I purchased the paperback. I haven't yet started the annotations, but I have been reading from it, and I really want to. There were so many things about this book, about the writing. I think Kristen Hanna is an amazing writer. I think this is a beautiful story about a family over the span of like the lifetime of a family, and I think it's beautiful. So it's Alaska, 1974. This is what the back says. Might be more succinct if I just read it like the other one. The Albrights are a family in crisis. They are alone, living off the grid in a harsh and unforgiving wilderness. Ernst Albright has come home from the Vietnam War, a changed and volatile man, and has made the impulsive decision to move his wife and daughter north to America's last frontier. I'm going to leave it at that. So this family moves to Alaska, and they are wanting to live off the grid, wanting to escape from the reality, from themselves, from their families, but they come looking for found family, for new friends, for a new life, for a new beginning. But the dark winters can really cause a lot of psychological troubles. And I want to say that this book is, to me, a historical fiction thriller / horror. There are definitely, this is an unputdownable book. You get to a point where you just like cannot pull yourself away from it because it's page turning. There's this thriller sense to it, the way you feel it with thriller, where your heart is like coming out of your like mouth. You're just like, what is going to happen? What is going on? Are they going to be okay? And there are parts in here that are horrific. So that it's kind of like a horror. The way that I can best say, it's kind of like, I felt like my heart was beating the way The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe beats, where you just feel like your heart is like thumping, and there are monsters that this family has to reckon with, and figuratively there are monsters. And I think that those monsters really give this book that horror edge. For me, in my reading experience, I felt like this read like a horror book. So I love historical fiction horror. I love historical fiction suspense, and I think this was that. The sense of place in here, Alaska as a setting was like a character. Alaska was everything in this novel. Like, this novel would not be as well loved if the setting was different. I think that the cold, the dark, that sense of place added so much like, not ambiance, because I don't want to use it in a positive way, but like, it made the setting, like the setting made the story and added to the suspense in this book. So I recommend The Great Alone. I gave it 5 stars. It is about, there is a coming of age element. It is about a family, but the young girl, the daughter, is we meet her, she's 13, and we follow her till the end of the book when she's an older woman. So it follows her lifetime, and it at times can feel like the very best YA because of the coming of age element in it. That is, most of the book is a coming of age story. So in that sense, if you love YA like I do, it's amazing. I love a coming of age story, so I absolutely embraced it wholeheartedly. If you don't like coming of age stories, then you might struggle with this one. But for me, it was, it was everything I didn't know I wanted to read. I do want to say that this book is better read in the summer, at least for me. I think if I had read this in the winter, it would have been too heavy. So reading it in the summer was a great, just timing was perfect. That was the thing. Timing for me with this book was perfect. Timing for this book was not. I think the timing was off in my reading this book, but the timing for this one, this is a book that came out in 2018 and been on my radar for that long, and I put a hold on it. I don't even know when, and it came in, and I seized the day with the hold, and I'm glad I did, and the timing was perfect. And sometimes these reading is subjective. Sometimes a book comes into your life at not the right time, and that shows in your experience of it. So please take my readings and my feedback and my reviews with a grain of salt, because this feeling that I have with this book is very personal. It's very subjective. I loved it. And let me know if you've read it, what you think. What I'm currently reading, I am currently reading 2 books for Jello July. This is My Sister the Serial Killer by Oyinkan Braithwaite, and I am about 60% through. And I am really, really enjoying this book. I had read not a short story by this author called Treasure, and I really liked it. And this is reminding me so much of that short story. I really like the characters. This is a tiny little book, and the chapters are super short, and I love a book with short chapters because it just is, it's readable. And I find that the characters are really well written. And I'm also reading Goodbye Earl, a revenge novel by Lisa Cross Smith. I love Lisa Cross Smith. I love her writing. This is definitely a summer book. I love the feel of this book. I um, I was reading this out in the hammock, and Lisa Cross Smith does what I wanted Sarah Addison Allen to do. So Lisa Cross Smith is always referencing songs and music. So I have a playlist that I'm creating on Spotify for this reading experience with Goodbye Earl. It's so much fun. It's a lot of country music. Of course, the Chicks have the song Goodbye Earl, and that is like the main song of this playlist. But I am loving the music choices. I'm loving the vibe. I am enjoying it. It's just been a fun, enjoyable domestic thriller. Yeah, I don't know. I'll say I'm still kind of maybe about 40% in, 30 to 40% in. And I'm still reading the collection of short stories Sabrina and Corina by Cali Fajardo Anstein. I'm almost done. I think I'm at 80% now. So hopefully that'll be ending soon. Hopefully, but not hopefully. Like, I don't want the book to end, but I know it's going to end, and I want it to end so that I can pick up the next Cali Fajardo book on my shelves. Okay, so the book I DNF'd, I'd gotten this book also as a whole that finally came in through the Libby app, and it is Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. I really, really wanted to love this book too. I ended up DNFing it. I was not enjoying it. I didn't really like the characters. I don't really feel like I have to like the characters to read a book, but I just wasn't enjoying it. So I made a decision to just DNF. I mean, maybe I could pick it up again, but I really don't think I will. I think that book just wasn't for me. And so that's okay. Community connection. So in this part of this weekly review, I like to talk about a way that I've connected with another content creator here on BookTube, or with a viewer in the comments, or just something to build community and something to connect this community with other communities here in BookTube. And I was watching a video by Kat at Curious Cat. She went on a solo writing retreat, and I felt so inspired. So ever since I watched her video, I have been dreaming of doing a solo writing retreat. I say I want to do a solo writing retreat, but I think I have a hard time. I don't have a hard time being alone, but I definitely like to be around other people. So I always think like, oh, who could I bring with me on this writing retreat, or this like retreat, whether it be a reading retreat or a writing retreat. But I watched Kat's video and I really felt like, man, I should really do that. It would be so much fun. So I've been thinking about, where would I go on this solo writing and reading retreat? Where would I go? I mean, what I would do is I would write things I've been meaning to write, and read books I've been meaning to read. Maybe for 3 to 4 days. And I'm thinking, where? I mean, I live in Texas, so there's a lot of possibilities within the state of Texas. I had a friend tell me she would like for me to go with her on a writing retreat to Mexico City, but I wouldn't go to Mexico City by myself. I have gone to Mexico City by myself. I wouldn't want to go to Mexico City by myself right now. But I've just been thinking about it. So that's a community connection. Thank you, Kat, for the inspiration. It's something that's been on my mind, something I've been contemplating, and I think it's so much fun to dream of possibilities. So what's most feasible would be to stay in the state of Texas and maybe on the coast somewhere. Would be nice. Or I don't know, maybe in the hill country. But it would be nice to go out of state. It would be nice to go somewhere new, somewhere I haven't been, somewhere where would feel like there's a different sense of place in a different setting, um, and give me a sense of adventure. So, have you been on a solo writing retreat, and where have you been on a solo writing retreat? Where would you recommend? Um, I'm curious. I'm taking it all in, all the information, all the inspiration. A podcast. I really haven't been listening to podcasts. I was looking for podcasts about magical realism because I feel like there's a lot of misconceptions about what is magical realism. So I was listening to a podcast called the Read Well Podcast, and episode 51 is titled Allegory and Magical Realism. And I think the last name of the podcast creator is Hood. Is it Eddy Hood? And he was talking about Gabriel Garcia Marquez, a short story by Gabriel Garcia Marquez to illustrate magical realism. So I like one thing that they said in that podcast is they said, quote, magical realism is about how the sublime of life can come out of the reality of life. And I thought that was so true. Magical realism is about how the sublime comes from the harsh realities of life. So it takes reality and spins it and gives it a bit of like suspends it in a fantasy or like a magical element, but it's still something that's very real and concrete, and it's of reality. So I'm always curious to hear about how people interpret magical realism, and if you have read any books or listened to any podcasts on magical realism, let me know. I'd be interested. So, recipe of the week. Not really a recipe, more so like a discovery. So, today I went to a local vegan market and I bought some microgreens. At the market, they were doing a raffle. So, I put my name in for the raffle and I won a box of sunflower sprouts. And I had been talking to the vendor about their microgreens and their sprouts. They are grown locally. They are like a local company, and they were offering different tastings, and so I was tasting the different sprouts. And before I won this box of sunflower sprouts, I was talking to him, and he was telling me, like, as he was giving me samples, he was like, "Oh, these sunflower sprouts, they're kind of like, they taste like sunflower. They're a bit nutty." Um, and I was like, "Oh, okay, sure, I'll try it." So I tried it. I was like, "Oh, this is good." And he's like, "Yeah, have you heard of chocolate covered sunflower sprouts?" And I was like, "No." He's like, "Yeah, so there's a chef, I think somewhere on the East Coast, and he heard about the chef dipping the sprouts in chocolate and making chocolate covered sunflower sprouts. So then I win a box of sunflower sprouts. So what do I do when I get home? I dip them in chocolate. So I put them in the fridge and they're a little bit melty now. I was trying to get them to the chocolate to harden. So wanted to show you. This is what it looks like, a chocolate covered sprout. I'm not gonna put that in my mouth because that's gonna look just terrible on camera, but I think they're so good, and I am looking forward to. I These are just a few that I took out. The rest are still in the refrigerator, letting the chocolate harden. But yeah, I mean, it's something new to dip in chocolate. So, and they do have a bit of a nutty taste. So I think this is a really healthy snack. Like, if you're looking for things to dip in chocolate that are healthy, maybe try sprouts. I don't know. It was interesting. So something new. I always love exploring new tastes. Um, and what I'm looking forward to. So I am looking forward to starting new planners. So I have I ordered a weekly and a monthly calendar. So I'm waiting for those calendars to come in tomorrow. I'm also starting a new undated daily. I really like switching calendars mid-year. So I like the starting a new calendar in July and August. I'm starting in August. So yeah, I am excited. I am looking forward to getting these planners and kind of feeling like I'm giving myself a fresh start in the middle of the year. And this next few months, like this last part of the year, is my favorite because there's so much fun and to look forward to. There's end of summer is always a lot of fun. Cozy season, Halloween, the fall, and then the holidays. I'm just I look forward to all of those um, yearly rituals and so yeah, I'm really excited to get a calendar and start fresh and start planning all of the events. So like the silent reading party that I'm going to be hosting later this year, and I have some meaningful anniversaries to celebrate at the end of the year. So I'm looking forward to those things, and I think a planner is good. It's a good new start. So that's what I'm looking forward to. Thank you so much for watching. Hasta la próxima.